Hello and welcome to the Spooky Chris podcast. My name is Chris Ringler. I'm your aforementioned Spooky Chris. Welcome aboard on this terror train. When I was a kid, I grew up in kind of an idyllic situation where my folks bought my grandparents' house, and it was on a lake. So I grew up on a lake. The lake had a big old island, which was neat. Me and my friends, any chance we could get in warm weather, we were in the water. Swimming and stuff. And across the street from us, my sister and I, was this giant empty field. It's a big empty field to play in. I would take we play softball, baseball, or whatever there, and I'd take our old dog Troubles out for walks out there as I got older, and to the left of my house, down at the end of that road, was a big woods. And to the right of my house, at the very, very end of our whole big neighborhood, but at the end of the whole street of the neighborhood, at that point it would have been quarter or half a mile away, something like that, was another woods, both huge woods. And even at the front of the entry to where we lived was woods. And my friends and I made great use of all of those woods. In the front one, we made a little like a clubhouse area. I don't know, but we'd explore them in the biggest of the two as we got older, as we were older teens. Mid-range teens. We would go for late night walks in the summer. And would go and wander around in the woods at night. It was like trying to, like, I dare you to go, this far in, because it was creepy. And I remember going through and just like running in lots of cobwebs when I did it, and it was really cool. It was really fun, and these are huge parts of my childhood. When a day came and someone sold the land. And they bit by bit sold all of that land. It was heartbreaking. Across the street as that land was sold, and they started dumping off big things of dirt and materials to build a sewer system and everything, so they could start building homes there. And then with both of the wooded areas, like they started to develop too. When I grew up, everybody always wants to live on the water, but it's become more of a fetishized thing now, where it's very much. Whereas once upon a time, I think people, it was a sign of status to live in the city and to live in the middle of everything. Now everybody wants to live out in the country and have these giant properties and to live on the water and have a giant boat and all this stuff. And, for us, it was, like I said, my parents got the house from my grandmother and grandfather, and then they'd built onto it. So it was never like it wasn't them escaping the city or anything. My mom grew up in this house. But it was definitely kind of a shock to the system, the idea that but this field, we played here all the time. There was a hot air balloon that landed in it once. It was the center of our world. These woods were the center of our world. And now they're owned, which we never thought about. And someone's developing them. And if you go there now, houses everywhere. And it's interesting because you're talking, gosh, how many houses did they add? 50 houses maybe? To this neighborhood, something like that, 30, 50. It's a culture change because you're getting different people who are there for different reasons. It's not like the folks that have been there for generations. It happens. I mean, this is what happens. It just kind of is what it is, and there's no reason to. I mean, things change. So I think where I'm going with this is that we get so hung up on our perception of our personal ownership when we really don't own a thing, where we get upset that this beautiful field, this beautiful nature I have around me. It's so wonderful. I moved out here and it's lovely and it's great, or I've lived out here forever and it's so peaceful. And then, goodness gracious, there's all these houses here. There's a shopping mall. There is a business. There is any number of things. They've developed it. How dare they? They have taken away my green space. And I can get on that bus because I've been on that bus. I've been on the bus of like, man, this stinks. Like, this isn't what I'm used to. This isn't what I grew up with. This isn't what I liked. Like, I liked seeing this big swath of nature, but I didn't own it. There's the thing. And people, you can't get mad when things you don't own are changed or taken from you or developed. We can get mad in the abstract. We can always like shake our fist and say, oh, this sucks. That's not what I'd want to see here. This isn't what I'd want to see. But the fact is that if you don't own the property, you can't say what happens to it. It'd be great if the United States was still a country that respected farmers and supported farmers, and we all bought local and this and that. And we don't. And I'm certainly not going to point any fingers because I don't. It's hard work. It's expensive work. And corporate farming is what it is. As with a lot of things in the country now, it's corporatized. Like, there are people on boards that run things. It's not like a guy getting up at the crack of dawn and doing this stuff because it's what his family's always done. Those days are gone. It's a board that gets up at the crack of whenever they want and like looks at numbers and decides the fate of things. And we get upset when we see our cities change and our towns change and our neighborhoods because of development. But again, like, this land isn't ours. Someone always owns everything. Someone owns everything. That island in the lake I grew up on, it was always kind of the island. It was no one did anything with it. It was just an island. When it comes down to things like that, like you go to wooded areas, you're like, you don't think about ownership. Not when you're a kid. It doesn't ownership. You own a house. You own the property that the house is on. You don't think of anything else. So you don't think about someone owns an island. Someone owns a woods. Yeah, somebody owns everything. Whether it's the government or a township or the state or the city or just somebody. Somebody owns everything. Someone now owns that island I grew up across from. They own all the islands in that lake. And they go and they use it to party. And it's weird. They haven't developed them, but I mean, it's just a matter of time until someone with enough money decides we can just build a bunch of stuff. We can build a little cottage out here. We can party out here and clear cut a lot of stuff. And I mean, it's only a matter of time. Even if there's wetlands, unless somebody's going to go and check, wetlands can be filled in and oopsie poopsie, what wetlands, So I get it and I sympathize with people who are sad when they see things change and when they see the landscape around them change, especially if you grew up around it or you've been there for generations or, decades. And I absolutely sympathize, and it sucks. But the fact is that we own the property that we own. And beyond that property line, we don't really have a lot to say. We can curse, we can gnash our teeth, we can shake our fists, but there's not a lot we can do. We can go and fight it. You can go and the township or whomever in charge might take your side and say, you're right, that shouldn't be that thing. But eventually that board is going to change, or their minds are going to change, and they're going to finally someday, for whatever reason, say, you're wrong this time. Some things are going to go there, and this is what it's going to be. And that's just the way of the world. Life is impermanence. We don't own the things that we don't own. And there's not a lot we can do about it, other than get over it. And again, it sounds very cruel and very crass, get over it. But that's kind of what we have to do sometimes. There's so much going on in the world and in our own personal lives that if we make everything a personal fight, we're fighting on too many fronts and we lose everything, mainly ourselves. And that's the sad fact is if where you are is changing, everything around you is changing and you don't like it, then maybe you need to change yourself and move, or, try to, or just invest yourself in the things that you can control and can love. And again, all not the nicest messages. I've believe me, I went from seeing downtown Flint as a shuttered up city to a city of a lot of progress and development, and they're still doing that, but there's still a lot of needless roadblocks and people like that doesn't let new business in, and people that own buildings who have zero interest in developing them. They just want to sit on the land until someone finally comes and with a blank check and is just going to write whatever number these people want. I worked for this person who had a bookstore downtown in Flint, and it was in a storefront on the main drag, and lovely business, lovely person, and great building. But the person who owned the building kept raising the rent. And it was just a weird owner. Like their wife would come in and just hang out and wait for him. He would come in and take naps on the couch in the front of the building. It was just weird. It's a weird situation. But since that time, and this is 20 years, there have been so many businesses come and go there because he keeps his rent too high. So all of these independent businesses, and you're talking like a hookah shop, a Wiccan shop, places to do drug testing, a lingerie shop, a bunch of different businesses have been there and gone. Because, yeah, and again, not everything is the fault of this owner, because some people just don't have a great business plan. They don't, the market isn't there for them. Whatever. It's not always the fault of that, but that owner is the person you can always go back to and look at and go, there's a through line here that I think I see. And it's not my building. It's not my property. It's not my business. And sometimes that's just the way it is. It's just, sometimes it's just not your business. And so, you can look across the street and have your morning coffee and smile because you have some nature and a beautiful view. And then one day it's taken because someone built a giant house in front of you, and it sucks. But it wasn't your property to begin with. So it is what it is. Friend, I am your Spooky Chris. I am an author, podcaster, movie reviewer, and general ne'er-do-well. You can find all my stuff at spookychris.com. All of my books are available on amazon.com. I have something for everybody. Trust me. Just look up Chris Ringler. I will talk to you soon, friend. Take care.